Mayor.
We're good, Steve?
We're good.
All right. Well, good morning, San Ramon. It's May 1st. Happy May's Day. Welcome to the 5th week. We've had these updates to our residents to give them information that hopefully is very pertinent on the COVID crisis. Today, we are going to start with our city manager, Joe Gorton, give an update on what's new in the city and what to look forward to the coming week, especially with some of the changes from the state and from the county health official. Our police chief, Craig Stevens, will be here to update us on stuff. And then, of course, our county supervisor, Candace Anderson, probably has a lot of information about the newest changes that are occurring from this week. Then we have Tom Garino from PG&E. We'll talk about really important stuff, make sure that we can continue to get power and gas to our homes and some of the challenges that they are dealing with and how they're adapting to it. And the same with our fresh water supply from East Bay Mud. Frank Mellon has joined us to give an update on what they're doing to ensure we can continue to get fresh water. And then we are going to close with a company we just hired this week, Townsend and Associates, Austin Weber. He is a firm we brought in to help our local businesses navigate the difficulties of this COVID crisis and some of the governmental programs that are out there for their assistance. And I look forward to hearing that. And I think he'll be doing a podcast or broadcast next week for us too, as I understand. So yes, so I'll start off and ask our city manager, Joe Gorton, to give us an update on what's happened this week and what we can look forward to in the near future.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will not spend a whole lot of time. Like usual, I'm here to answer any questions that the residents may have, but as I'm sure everybody knows, and I believe Supervisor Anderson will probably get into more depth and specific to the order. We've seen the order extension and some areas that are significant relaxation of that order in the areas of construction and outdoor activities, landscapings, and such as that. So we're adjusting not only the city's work flow and work processes within the guidelines of that order, but also working with the different landscapers and then coordinating with some of these construction sites, a couple of which are major for us that are starting back up to ensure that they're being compliant and that they're getting started off on the right foot, so to speak. So I'm happy to answer any questions in the future, but I don't want to take up too much more of time of the valuable guests. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Joe. And you'll be around for questions at the end.
I will.
Thank you.
Yes.
Chief Stevens, what's the newest that's happening in San Ramon, and any trends and things that are important for residents to know?
Good morning, Mayor. Thank you for having me. I can kind of transition to the health order issue. It's probably timely considering that obviously the order's been extended through the end of May. This past week, we actually saw a pretty significant reduction in the amount of calls that we received regarding public health order violations. Since the order went into place, we've been averaging 35 to 40 calls per week that are either being handled by the police department or a code enforcement unit regarding the health order violations. This past week, we actually received less than 20. So it's by far the fewest amount of complaints that we've received. And that's even with the new mask order going into play. So I think that really showcases just what a fantastic job that our community is doing. Our message and our approach has been and will continue to be to educate people. We'd rather educate rather than take official enforcement action. To this point, we have not had to actually issue any citations. And I think even countywide, I think there's been, I'm aware of maybe 4 or 5 cases countywide in which actual citations have been issued. So I think that's a pretty consistent approach amongst Contra Costa law enforcement. And again, just really want to thank our community for doing their part. A lot of these interactions are uncomfortable for us as well. We understand people's fears and frustrations, and we're navigating this just like everybody else is. So I want people to know that we're not going out and issuing multiple citations every day. We're responding appropriately to calls. making a determination whether it's actually truly a health order violation or not. If it is, we're providing education, and again, our community has been really supportive, and really thank them, and it seems like we're making some progress. Probably the two most common complaints that we've received the last month or so have been regarding landscaping and also regarding some social sporting activities. And as part of the new order, obviously the majority of landscaping will be approved, as well as some social sporting recreational activities. So I think our two most common complaints that we received, actually, there's going to be some lessening of those restrictions. So we may even see the trend continue of a reduction of calls for public health order violations. I'd kind of like to pivot and talk a little bit about the zero bail judicial order that is in effect. And the reason I think it's important is we've had a couple cases over the last 2 or 3 weeks here in San Ramon that I know has caught some media attention. I know has created some concern amongst some of our residents. And I just want to kind of take a moment to provide a little information on that, just so people understand really what the order is and why certain things are happening. And I'll probably just start off by showcasing the two cases that I'm referring to. Several weeks ago, Danville Police Department got into a pursuit with a stolen vehicle. They ended up discontinuing the pursuit based on dangerous driving on the part of the suspect. The suspect later came into the city of San Ramon. We got into a pursuit with the vehicle. Eventually, the suspect abandoned the vehicle. We did a search. There was a K-9 deployment. We ended up taking the suspect into custody. And we ended up not being able to book that suspect into jail. And I'll explain why that was the case here in a moment. But that case caught a little bit of media attention, and I think there was some misunderstanding and frustration as to why that suspect was not booked. And I think there was some articles that were written that I think didn't highlight the PD or the sheriff's department in the best light, which was unfair. And then about 2 weeks ago, we had a case in which a suspect was arrested in Oakland, was booked into Santa Rita County Jail based on the zero bail order, was released a short time after. Within an hour of being released, did a carjacking in the city of Dublin, ended up coming to San Ramon, abandoned that car, attempted to carjack another suspect in San Ramon, and ultimately was taken into custody. But again, I think there was some frustration as to why this person was not kept incarcerated in Santa Rita. So I want to touch on why that's the case and kind of the world that we as law enforcement are living in right now. And some of you may be aware of this, so if you are aware, it may be redundant, but I think there's some people that aren't aware of what's going on. But in the early parts of April, the Judicial Council of California instituted a zero bail schedule. And there were certain outcomes of that order that was put into place. It resulted in almost all misdemeanors, and the majority of low-level felonies were given a zero bail. And what that meant is, and it was retroactively applied as well as moving forward as well. So that resulted in about 35,000 inmates being released from the California state prison system. On a local level, it resulted in over 100 inmates being released from Contra Costa jails. And I don't have the exact numbers as far as how Santa Rita was affected, other than I've been told that hundreds of inmates were released from Santa Rita jail in Alameda County. On more of a local level, what that means to us, and I'll give you an example of the pursuit we had of the suspect with the stolen vehicle. Stealing a vehicle under this judicial order is a zero bail offense. So what that means is, at the time, we couldn't even book the person into jail because it was a zero bail. So we had to cite the person in the field. And we've had a number of cases like that where we've made arrests for cases that generally we would have booked the suspect into jail. However, because of the zero bail, we don't have that ability. This past week, the sheriff did say that, look, even on zero bail cases, we will allow you to book them, but you need to understand that at the jail, we're simply going to process them and release them again, because they don't have the authority to do anything other than that. So I just want to take a moment to touch on that, because I know, just based on some comments that have been made to me, comments I've seen on social media, I know there's a lot of frustration, misunderstanding as to what's going on. And, I want people to know that it's not just the police departments or the sheriff deciding not to make arrests. We are simply complying to what this judicial order is. As it stands right now, this judicial order will stay in place for 90 days after the time that the governor ends the state of emergency in the state. So don't know exactly when that's going to be, but for all intents and purposes, it seems like that's the world that we're living in for the foreseeable future. I have not seen, obviously yesterday was the last day of the month. We closely look at our crime stats on a monthly basis. I've not had the opportunity yet to see what our crime stats look like for April, but just as far as the eye test goes, based on what I see, not only in our city, but throughout our region, I look at the police logs from all of our neighboring police agencies. I'm fully expecting that in conjunction with this order that we're going to see a crime rate that is going to be going up. And I was part of a chiefs meeting a couple of days ago, and I know that all the chiefs and the sheriff across the county, we're going to be monitoring that closely just to see the correlation between this judicial order and what we're seeing as far as crime. The reason for the order was to control the spread of the coronavirus in the jail and prison systems. That's what was behind it. I know right now, my understanding is that, at least in Contra Costa County, that inmate counts are at an all-time low. And I don't want to speak for the sheriff's office, but I know the last I had heard, they had not had any inmates at this point that had tested positive for COVID. So hopefully that remains to be the case. One other thing on crime stats that we're monitoring pretty closely again is that I'm pretty confident that we are going to see, and we have seen already, an increase in domestic violence cases and calls. And I think that makes sense. A lot of people are at home a lot more than they used to be. There's a lot of people that obviously are under a lot of stress. So we definitely have seen an increase in that. And one other area I'm looking at are mental health commitments,
Yes.
commitments under Welfare and Institution Code 5150. Again, based on the eye test, it seems like we've seen a pretty significant increase in mental health commitment, certainly in San Ramon, and I'd be curious to see those stats on a wider regional basis. So we'll closely be monitoring all of that data as it comes forward. And again, Mayor, I appreciate your time, and if there's any further questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Great. And Chief, I want you to know how much we, the citizens, appreciate what you're doing every day, all your staff members. We know the frustration you're experiencing as you literally chase down bad guys and girls, and you're unable to book them and complete the cycle in some ways. So don't let that discourage you. We so appreciate what you guys do. And that's why when you're driving around, you're seeing the waves from the residents, because we love you guys. So thank you. And also,
Thank you,
I appreciate you how you're highlighting the mental health piece. I think it's something which is, if not underreported, it's something which is really beginning to affect a lot of people in lots of ways, whether it's delaying health issues, which is creating stress, children and households who aren't getting out to school. I mean, the mental health pressures on a lot of families is tremendous. And so you're the first line sometimes that people who encounter people with those kinds of issues. And we appreciate what you do every day to take care of them. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Okay. Candace, it's been a busy week in many ways. There's been a change. There'll be some influences for our residents. Give us an update on what this all means.
I absolutely will. And first, happy May Day. Now, if we were back in Hawaii, where I am originally from, and sixth generation, I would be wearing a lei, a flower lei, because in Hawaii, May Day is Lei Day. And I really miss getting to celebrate May Day that way. But nevertheless, I want to just start out by thanking the public for their tremendous cooperation with these various health orders that have come out. City of San Ramon has been just an amazing partner, and as Chief Stephen said, yeah, we've got some issues, certainly with our jail. I was just going to touch upon the stats. As of last week, according to the sheriff, we're only at 36% of capacity in our jail. We could hold up to 2,000 inmates. We have 695. Those that are being held right now are really serious offenders: murder, child molestation, rape, kidnapping, burglary, assault with a deadly weapon. And we appreciate how our police chiefs are keeping our communities safe, despite having a lot of people out, and they may not be necessarily even going to a shelter where they're in the right circumstances. So we're continuing to work from a county level to ensure that we do have those supportive services, reentry services when people are let out. But I also want to just say how hard I know this time has been for so many people, both economically as well as socially. And it's challenging. And again, thank you all for hanging in there. As we look at where we've come from this pandemic, we're making tremendous progress, which is why we have this new shelter order that is lifting a lot of restrictions. But I just want to say now is really not the time to lose that progress that we've achieved. If we lift too many restrictions too soon, it would potentially lead us back to a large surge in cases and result in very unfortunate hospitalizations and deaths. And so we understand the economic impact, and I just cannot underscore that enough, because from day one, that has been one of my primary concerns of how do we balance those two things. And so let's start out with saying, hopefully you're all going to our coronavirus.cchealth.org. As of yesterday, countywide, we had 13 new cases, which brings us now, we're up to countywide 891 cases. And sadly, we lost 2 more individuals, and we've got 27 people hospitalized right now. San Ramon, in the past week since I've been here last, you've had 1 additional case. So you're up to 34 cases in your community, which comes out to about 46 cases per 100,000, which is still on the very low side compared to other Contra Costa cities. Website. Today, we are updating it, and we're going to be providing a piece of information that a lot of people have requested. We currently provide the race, ethnicity of those who come down with coronavirus. We are now later today going to be updating it to also provide the race, ethnicity of those who have passed away, as well as the age of those who have passed away. And you know, as might be expected, probably half of our deaths in our county are people over age 80, but the rest, they're in my age range. They're in people even younger than me. And it's a serious issue as we look at it. So let's talk about health orders just briefly. I've mentioned it before. I don't get to write the health orders. We have an appointed county health officer who, under state law, when we have a declared emergency, when we have a pandemic of this scale, they get to make those orders that they deem are necessary to keep our community safe. And on top of that, the governor gets to issue orders. And you may have watched some interesting exchanges between what the governor's ordering, what we're ordering. Contra Costa in the Bay Area counties, for example, we said, we think golf can happen safely. Governor was not pleased because his order did not include it at that time. I think the state order I heard this morning has since been modified, but we do need to, while we have a regional approach in the Bay Area, we recognize that other counties are going to need to make other decisions as necessary and as their numbers really portray. So let's start out first with the new order. So what is different? Well, the first thing that's really, really significant is all construction is now allowed. And again, there are guidelines. You still need to practice social distancing. And as an appendix to the order, there are very specific guidelines if it's a large construction project versus a small construction project. But we believe, with great help from the construction industry, that these things can be done safely. And we expect them to be done safely because we still want that maintenance of social distancing. Another big deal is we've expanded all commercial residential real estate transactions so they can fully resume. And we've gotten a little bit more liberal in interpreting showing a house. Now, although the preference is to show a house virtually, if it's not possible, it is now possible to show a house in person if the occupants are not present there as well. We've opened up the ability to have childcare summer camp classes for children, provided it's being provided for parents who are working and in those areas of work that have been opened up. The real caveat is it needs to be a set group of 12 or less so that you don't have mingling of different children coming in and out, bringing potentially different strains of a virus among the group, and that you have a set leader as well. And again, this is something that the state order had not yet contemplated, but in order to open up more jobs, it's so critical that we have appropriate, not just daycare, but childcare for young older children as well, who really should not be home unsupervised while their parents work. Another huge issue, which was mentioned by both our city manager and police chief, is outdoor businesses. You can get our landscapers back out there. They can be working, and again, social distancing. We don't want you up close to your landscaper. Maintain that social distancing. They should be wearing masks, and ideally, they should be driving separate vehicles if they aren't part of the same household. But we are allowing that. Nurseries are going to be open, agricultural operations, and right now we're kind of working through some of those agricultural operations because it's kind of you-pick season is coming up. And there's a big concern out in East County of whether or not there will be an influx of people coming out to pick strawberries or peaches or other fruit. And we really are trying to still maintain this level of social distancing. We are continuing to ensure that businesses have protocols in place if they are allowed to be open for social distancing, to continue wearing some kind of a face covering. And those businesses that are not yet able to open, we want them preparing, coming up with protocols so that when we are able to lift this additional level, we will be able to have them open up to customers and have appropriate safe social distancing. Previously, residential moves were contained to those that were essential. Now all residential moves can proceed. And then we've got outdoor recreation. And really, this is one of those use common sense. And it's, essentially, we don't want any outdoor recreation that's going to encourage gathering or high touch equipment. So we're allowing tennis, we're allowing golf, pickleball, things where you can maintain a certain distance, things that won't be encouraged and are not on the approved list, are things like basketball, where you're inclined to bump into somebody, bocce ball, where it's very hard to not have sort of that closer than 6 feet social distancing. But again, it's up to each city to really interpret these orders, do the enforcement as you see fit. And hopefully, because of this lessening of some of these requirements, the chief will continue to have even fewer calls with regard to violations. And I appreciate that all of our police chiefs in Contra Costa have not been out writing citations unless absolutely necessary, like a bar remaining open or someone having a large party. We expect people to use common sense to protect your health. And one thing we're also looking at is next week, we are starting our COVID-19 Advisory Committee for the Board of Supervisors. It's an ad hoc committee that I'm going to be chairing with Supervisor Mitchoff, and it's at 10 a.m. It'll be on Zoom. We're putting out the notice later today. And it's an opportunity for businesses that are already operating to bring to us issues, for businesses that aren't already operating to bring us ideas of how they could potentially operate safely. We'll be able to bring that to our health officers. And even if we're not able to open up right now, in the next wave of openings, which we anticipate at the end of this month, we can then come up with opening these businesses where they have these safe protocols in place. So what are we looking for? What is going to be the magic key to lessening the restrictions? In the new order, our Bay Area health officers have given us some very clear, what they call indicators. These are the things that are going to allow us to loosen restrictions. And so the first is whether the total number of cases in the community is flat or decreasing. And right now we're pretty flat in Contra Costa County. We're not decreasing yet, but we are fairly flat. And similarly, whether the hospitalized patients flat or decreasing. Currently, we do have capacity both in our hospital beds and in our ICU beds. One of the indicators they're looking at is whether 50% or less of ICU beds are being occupied by COVID patients. Right now, we're well below that. So we're doing okay in that regard. Next is whether we're meeting the need for testing, and especially for people who are in vulnerable populations or engaged in working with high risk populations, occupations of that name. Ideally, we want 2,100 tests a day. That's about 5 times what we are currently doing. And we want to test not just those who are exhibiting symptoms, which is currently the criterion, although we continue to loosen it significantly. You don't have to have all the symptoms. You just, if you have one symptom, you can go to one of our free test sites. We're encouraging all of your healthcare providers to also be very liberal in issuing these tests as well. We want to very proactively get more. We want to prioritize more rapid testing for workers in group living homes, in senior care facilities, so we can preemptively identify someone who might be contagious but not even know it, isolate that individual, those people they've come in contact with, so the rest of society can get back to business as usual. And so testing, if you are experiencing any symptom, it could be fatigue, it could be a low fever, it could be coughing, call 844-421-0804. And I know it's on the city's website as well. And we currently have test sites in Martinez, Pittsburgh, Concord, San Pablo, Antioch. We're very hopeful that we're going to have one here in San Ramon next week. We're working out the final details with that. And then we're expanding, the state is expanding 3 test sites as well. So next indicator is being able to investigate all COVID-19 cases, trace their contacts, isolate those who are positive, and quarantine people who may have been exposed. So think about our county health department. We have a public health department. Historically, we've had about 12 people who are the sort of the tracers, the ones who are going out. They would be working on tuberculosis cases, measles, mumps, something that, you know, is very, very contagious, but not typically very common. Currently, we have hired over 100 staff, and we're continuing to hire more because we need to be able to reach all those cases very quickly as we open up society back to much more as it once was. And so our goal in one of the indicators is that we're able to reach at least 90% of the cases that appear, that we're able to do that tracking and tracing. I will add that there are technology companies who have reached out, and some of those who are already tracking us via our telephones are looking at that. And there you're kind of balancing, you know, personal privacy versus being able to figure out where people have been. It's helpful to, if you keep a calendar, a diary, to sort of know who you've been in contact with, because if you come in contact with, if you come down with COVID, we need to know who you've been around because you may well have exposed them. The next indicator really is whether there's an adequate supply of personal protective equipment, the PPE, for all healthcare workers. And we want to have at least a 30-day supply so that if we have a surge, we can quickly respond. A lot of our facilities right now, and this is countywide, not just county facilities, are more at about a 7 to 14-day supply. And we do have our EOC just working full time, you know, tracking down every place where we might be able to purchase more, acquire more on an ongoing basis, but we're still not where we're comfortable at this time. And so it's really important that we do that as well. So those are the indicators that are going to really be helpful in identifying how we can loosen those.
Great. Candace, thank you so much. I want to remind also those in the audience who are listening to please send questions in. Steve is collecting those. Send it to info@sanramon.ca.gov. And at the end of this, we'll take those questions and ask them. Candace, thank you very much. One of the things that I've been hearing from my residents, or from our residents, is that concern about how the utilities are going to continue to function. Is there a concern about PG&E, gas and electricity, concerns about getting fresh water? So I invited a couple of folks. I'll start off with PG&E and Tom Garino. Tom, I know that you guys are being pretty proactive to make sure that your workforce can continue to be in the field and continue to deliver your product to us. So thank you for joining us this morning.
You're welcome, and good morning, everybody. Thank you, Mayor Clarkson. And this is, I appreciate following Supervisor Anderson because she gave the framework for just exactly how we're functioning. There were some restrictions lifted. I wouldn't say we were directly, but indirectly impacted by the county ordinances in that we do have a fair number of inspectors that go out on construction sites just to make sure everything is compliant and safe. And so we expect an uptick in our employees to partner with the business community and those, not just businesses, but residential and commercial owners who need our services to make sure that their new connections are set. I'm not sure, I'm looking out the window right now and we've got a very nice day here. We were inundated for a while with people that wanted us to go out to turn on their pilot lights. And of course we wear all protective gear, but we were extremely busy a couple of weeks ago when we had that cold snap. A couple of San Ramon centric tips for your viewers, who I assume mostly are in the San Ramon area. Excuse me. PG&E, we consider, first of all, San Ramon an extremely important city to us. Not that the others are less important, but San Ramon as a headquarters city, we have a few thousand employees working in San Ramon and a fair number that live in San Ramon. A lot of them have been assigned to work in the gas operations center. We have a high-tech gas operations center that monitors and engineers everything in the state of California out of our San Ramon facility. So it's very, very important. I know, Mayor, you have taken a tour. I'm not sure if the supervisor has taken a tour on that as well, or our city manager or the police chief, but we can arrange that when we get through this, and even members, select members of the public. So that's a very, very important, critical bit of infrastructure for your city, Mr. Mayor. PG&E is considered an essential employee workforce. So we're exempt from a lot of restrictions because we need to get in and make sure everybody has gas and electricity, and working closely with, I'm glad Candace mentioned the emergency center. We work really close with the great folks over at the emergency operations center. We also, I do want to mention that that's the focus as far as our employment. Our customers, we have tens of thousands of customers in the San Ramon area. Many of them, many residential customers have been hit adversely by COVID-19. Many have been laid off. And so those that are affected by this virus, and maybe they're temporarily or permanently out of work, I just want to assure everybody, we are not going to be turning anybody's power off, gas or electric, if you have been negatively impacted by COVID-19. And if you are falling into this particular category, and we have a lot of programs that that may be of assistance to you, you can email me, and my email is my name, tom.guarino, Guarino @pge.com. And I will respond to anybody that emails. If it's you need to talk to somebody on the phone, we have about 500 employees right now that are working from home answering customers' calls. And you can call them at 1-800-PGE-5000 or 1-800-743-5000 if you need personal care or don't have email and the like. So and they're there 24 hours a day. So you can call anytime, middle of the night, whenever, and we'll be able to provide help. We also have a charitable program that's funded by employees and also PG&E employees, and also our foundation. And in the San Ramon area, we are partnering with Meals on Wheels of the Diablo region. We gave them a $10,000 grant the other day to help in the delivery of the meals for their clients. And we contributed $1 million to a number of organizations throughout the state. Diablo Meals on Wheels, Kiva. I don't know if people are familiar with Kiva, but it's a very innovative program that provides low or no interest loans to small businesses. And I know you're doing something for small businesses. I think Candace is as well. And we have somebody from Townsend Public Affairs who's helping your residents. And that's another program that we fund that might be of interest and of assistance. And I just want to end on this note, Mayor. I'm glad we can help again.
Thank you. Absolutely. And the main concern, do you see any issues with you're able to deliver electricity and gas to our residents? You don't see any bottlenecks? Your work crews are in kind of different silos, so you don't have issues with COVID shutting down work crews?
You know, there was a little confusion internally, and I did a lot of work internally with my colleagues, and information that I received from you, Mayor, from the supervisor, and from the county health department. I think we have worked out all of those issues. So as of now, there shouldn't be. If something pops up, people, your viewers can email me, and or at best, if there's an issue related to that, it's best to just email me directly.
Great.
I work really close with the supervisor staff. They're great, and I work real close with them on. We have each other on speed dial to help mitigate any problems that citizens may have. So,
Tom, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Our other utility that we all rely upon is that great fresh water that comes from East Bay Mud. Frank Mullins here. Frank represents part of San Ramon. Frank, give us an update on how you guys are doing.
Well, it's a pretty complex situation. Tom, before you go, I'd like to encourage you to take a look into Hope Hospice. They recently sent out a plea for help for money because their usual fundraisers didn't come to pass. And they're located right in your neighborhood, Mr. Mayor. They provide an incredible service, which is operating under very difficult circumstances, but it's very needed. So, but let me get back onto water now. So let me start out with the easy part. How's the water supply? And the water supply right now, good thing we had rain in March, because February tied all records and in fact exceeded them with 0 precipitation. Made it the driest February on record, tied going all the way back to 1800s even. That was very trying, but March came in. It wasn't a miracle March, but it did give us enough so that we can say this is a dry year, and that's what we officially posted it as, but it's not a drought year. However, next year is going to be the telling of whether or not we're going to go to full drought again. So I'm going to encourage folks, because you're at home, you're having to use all the stuff you got, and your water use is up. Be thoughtful with how you use water. And yes, do your 20-second hand washing, but be thoughtful for how you use water, which gets down to infrastructure issues. The infrastructure issues, we were very close to getting to a 20-mile-a-year replacement. That's just, had a hole blown through it, if you pardon the pun. So we're doing our best, but I'm going to ask for a lot of patience from people, because they're going to say, why isn't this leak getting fixed? And we resorted to what we used to call in the Navy a port and starboard type of thing. In order to take care of, breaks and leaks, but still protect our workforce. Our field workforce, we're having half of them sit at home for 2 weeks, And you understand why the 2 weeks. That's how you get a showing of whether or not somebody's been infected. And then we put the other half at home. Yes, that's expensive, but that's how we're protecting our workforce. And it's also seen to it that we're going after the major leagues. Candace, I appreciate what is being said about construction. Um, we're looking at that. That may result in people coming back sooner from off this port and starboard. But nonetheless, we're doing this both for the employees and assure so that we can assure to the public that indeed we're going to be delivering the water. So let's talk about what we're doing to protect the employees. We ran into a real problem there for a while with regards to hand sanitizer. Our lab started making our own hand sanitizer simply because we couldn't get it. Now we're back getting it again. The face masks have been a problem too. But the really amazing part is the city of Oakland, which has been doing testing for first responders, they're at the head of the list. They looked at us and said, by golly, your water treatment plant operators, your wastewater treatment plant operators are first responders. And so we're able to have those folks go in for regular testing to keep ahead of it. Knock on wood, we've only had one case show up in our administrative group. And when you have 2,000 employees, it's kind of amazing to think that for where we're working, almost all of our administrative people are working from home. This is a difficult issue. Those of us who have, I'm a labor relations professional by background, and this is an issue for employers. However, we don't have a choice. We need to protect our employees. But the good news is technology like this Zoom has made it easier for us to get out there and get work done. It's taking longer to get calls responded to. We apologize for that. It's just totally unavoidable. But we're getting there. Because of the governor's orders, we had a lot of, not a lot, we had a fair amount of folks who had had their water shut off due to non-payment. We have turned everybody's water back on. And actually, our report on Tuesday was we're down to 22 people that we just can't contact. And we're not sure if the houses have been abandoned or what. But out of all of our thousands of folks that are connected, there's only 22 that have not been reconnected. It is going to create an issue because remember, the reason why these folks had their water turned off was non-payment of bills. We're suspending all action on water shutoffs until after this thing is resolved from the executive order. And even then, we're helping folks, working on helping folks with getting payment plans so that there'll be some payment plans. The other thing is, for years and years, we've had a customer assistance plan, but the participation was astonishingly low. Well, it's now astonishingly high, and that is costly. We're still trying to figure out what the cost impact is going to be on us. And we will have a financial workshop that I encourage folks to tune into in May, our first meeting in May. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff, including where's the money coming from? The history of East Bay Mud, we're coming up on 100 years, folks. We have never, ever had a layoff. And that's what we're seeking to maintain because we want to keep the water running. And if you don't have people out there in the field, it ain't going to run. So I'm going to close with what we're doing on the leaks. The technologies that we're employing have actually been proven technologies from around the world. You may notice, Mr. Mayor and folks and Candace in some of your areas, that there's these weird looking things on fire hydrants. It's not just a normal cap. It looks like something not normal. It's a pressure sensing device. And with it, we can sense when the leak is getting started. And it's been incredibly successful. Normally, when you invest in such stuff, you look at a payback of 5, maybe 10 years, 18-month payback. That's how much money we've saved with those devices. Plus, we're doing our best to use plugs that run through some of the water mains. So it's rather lucky that we did this before all this craziness has started, but it sure is coming in doggone handy right now. So with the construction you've been talking about, Supervisor Anderson, that's going to create some issues for us, but we're getting ready for it. And all I can tell you is that these are challenging times. We appreciate what folks are doing. And please, let's not forget our organizations that are doing so much on the front lines. That's all I have, and I'm ready for questions whenever you're ready to be the moderator.
Thank you, Frank. I'm going to finish with Austin Webster. He's with Townsend Associates. The city of San Ramon last week, the council passed a resolution authorizing the city manager to hire Townsend to come in and to begin to assist our businesses in town who are struggling, as thousands of people have been furloughed and laid off, and as businesses try to attempt to find ways to survive through this crisis and hopefully to thrive later on. We brought Austin's group on board. So Austin, share with us the sorts of services you'll be providing to San Ramon businesses.
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor Clarkson, and good morning, everyone. Again, Austin Webster with Townsend Public Affairs. We are excited to start working with the city and all of your local businesses. Just as a little bit of background on what folks can expect from us and who we are. Obviously, you know, as a business owner, we want you all to feel comfortable working with us, trust that we know what we're talking about, and trust that the city brought us on for a good reason to help you all. So Townsend Public Affairs has been around for a little over 20 years now. And in that time, we've navigated quite a few different federal programs and helped secure over $1.7 billion for our clients. So we're pretty good at getting at some of these federal dollars that are out there in the world. So we definitely are excited to be able to bring that to all of the businesses there in San Ramon. By way of an overview, there are a number of different funds that were created in response to COVID-19, and I'm sure that you've kind of talked a little bit about what's been happening in Washington, D.C. In some of your previous breakfasts here, but you'll indulge me for a minute. I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of how things have gone and what we can expect in the future as well. There have been 4 packages that have been passed by Congress that have provided aid for businesses, families, local communities, all totaling about $3 trillion at this point. And we do anticipate that there will be additional funding coming in the future. As soon as probably this month, we expect another funding package close to be probably another $1 trillion, to be honest with you. And then on top of that, there's still going to be the state's response, and there's going to be more funding made available there. I mention that because that is where a lot of the programs that businesses are going to be able to take advantage of are going to be coming from. For example, the Paycheck Protection Program has been in the news quite a bit recently. It's been very popular among small businesses. There's been some drama with the federal government getting those funds out, people being able to apply for those monies and to keep their businesses open or to keep their employees on payroll until we get through this. There's been more funding added to that program. There's additional funds being added to things like the economic impact disaster loans. But then beyond that, there are a number of smaller programs that aren't as well known. And that's one of the things that we want to make sure that your businesses have access to. And I actually appreciate Tom from PG&E mentioning Kiva, because that is one of the lesser known programs that's out there that actually provides a pretty good option for small local businesses that are just kind of looking for a little bit of cash flow and trying to make ends meet for a few weeks while we navigate all this process here. So that said, I want to talk a little bit about the business assistance program that we're going to be launching with you all here. Essentially, what folks can expect is that once they sign up to participate in the program, we'll ensure that they are eligible to participate, which it's very straightforward. Do you live or is your business located in the city of San Ramon, and do you have fewer than 500 employees? Based on that, we'll be contacting individual business owners to let them know we're ready to work with them. We'll have scheduling time for one-on-one conversations. It's easy to kind of host these webinars and talk about big picture. Here's what's going on, but we really want to be able to provide that personal attention for every business in San Ramon that wants to participate and needs assistance. So based on that, we'll get an assessment of what each business owner is trying to do. We'll kind of walk them through some of the options that they have available to them, help them navigate things that maybe they've already done if they've submitted for one program but not others. We'll talk a little bit about kind of moving forward, what they can expect from the federal government, what they can expect from the state government, and really do everything that we can to help them meet the needs of their businesses and their employees. And so with that, want to kind of provide a little bit more guidance on what that will look like. We will be scheduling conversations with everyone. We will be providing them with a lot of information, checklists of things that they will be needed to have on hand when they're looking to apply at some of these programs. We will not be physically applying for folks, and the reason for that is that some of these applications are they include confidential information that it's just easier for the business owner to provide, and some of it is that they have to enter into agreements with lenders for a period of time, and that's something that they're going to have to do themselves that we can't do for them. So just want to make that very clear for the viewers that we're here to help you in every way that we can, but at the end of the day, it's going to be still incumbent upon the business owner to hit send on that application and make some of those signatures. Beyond that, we're definitely happy to help as much as we can. After things are submitted, we're also willing to engage with some of those agencies and provide feedback. I'm happy to hear that Supervisor Anderson is going to be convening this ad hoc committee to get some more feedback from local businesses and to really start to work at how we kind of get back to the new normal, as you will, and get as many of those businesses open as we can. But the reality is that, a lot of those businesses, even as we start to reopen, are still going to be impacted and that they're going to need help. So we're going to be looking for every way that we can to be providing that information to lawmakers that are going to be rolling out funding at the state level, and then helping navigate some of the more complicated issues. If let's say that one of the local pizzerias there that's been around for forever applies for funding, and one of the agencies comes back and says, hey, we've got a problem with your business form here. We're happy to kind of step in and have some of those more complicated conversations that maybe a business owner isn't equipped to do. So that'll be another way that we're excited to support the local businesses there. I don't want to spend too much time talking about exactly how this program will work today, because I know that there are a lot of questions that folks probably have, but we are going to be hosting a webinar on Monday that'll sort of officially kick off the program. We'll get more in depth as to what people can expect, and that will be at 1:30 in the afternoon. So again, Monday at 1:30, and there will be information about that sent out to the businesses in San Ramon, as well as some information made available on the city's website. So, if you're interested, your viewers are interested, they should definitely plan to participate in that on Monday. If they can't, we will be posting that webinar online as well, and will be available to answer questions after the fact. But with that, I think that I will turn it back to you, Mayor, for any questions that I might be able to answer.
Yeah, the question was when they could start calling you and how. I think Monday is the start date, and that webinar will tell them how. Is that correct?
Exactly. That is correct.
Okay, fantastic. Steve, I imagine you've had a couple of questions sent your direction in the 10 to 15 minutes we have left. I'll let you go ahead and select those questions and ask it to the appropriate guest.
Great, thank you. And once again, as a reminder, info@sanramon.ca.gov if you have a question. If we can't get to it during this mayor's breakfast, we will be getting back to you. And you can email us 7 days a week. We're responding to the emails as soon as we get them. The first question that I have is, what is the process for developing a new health order? What input do health officers receive, and who participates in the process?
Candace.
I'm guessing that would be me. There's an ongoing discussion by all of the 7 major Bay Area counties health officers. Yeah, they are continually in discussion. And when they start to get toward the end of one of our orders, as we saw a couple of weeks ago, they start these discussions of how can we open up? How much can we open up? There's no politics involved. And so while we provide feedback over the course of a month and through our, 3 times a week, we're in a briefing with our health officer. He has the complete legal discretion. When they kind of come up with what they think is going to be scientifically, medically appropriate, then they bring in our county council, which are like our city attorneys for the county, who then weigh in on that. They're looking for how it complies with the state order that's already there, the way it's interpreted. But really, that's where they're looking at it. And they get the economic impact. They know there's more than just a health impact involved, but they're trying very, very hard to not lift an order, open up so fast that we can't see the results. Thus, there was a big discussion. Should this be a 2-week order or a 4-week order? And it really came down to them saying, if we lift the order right now, we're gonna have this increased social distancing through these new jobs opened up. We have to see how it plays out. It could take 2 weeks, 3 weeks before we would even see an increase if there was one. And so that's why they're being very cautious. But that's really how it's created. It's those health officers, their deputies meeting, conferring, and then coming up with an order. They tell us what the order is, but they don't ask, do you want this? Do you want that? It's here's what we're recommending, or here's what the order is. And it's signed by our health officer.
Great. Next question is the water supply safe from COVID-19?
Geez, Frank, that might be for you.
I dare say. The answer is absolutely. We go through so much treatment processes that the water is very safe. And in fact, we're working to make it even safer with the upgrades on the Orinda water treatment plant. There's disinfectants, there's UV that's used. We're very fortunate here. Our water is probably the safest thing you can do. And at the risk of sounding like somebody that talks about other ways of disinfecting, running your hands under the water if you don't have soap will help you more than just trying to figure out what you're going to do if you don't have soap or hand sanitizer. That's how clean the water is, and that's how it will wash away. So please, drink the water, enjoy the water, and don't waste the water.
And maybe a follow-up question. Also, can I flush disinfectant wipes down the toilet?
No, don't flush any kind of wipes down the toilet. I don't care what they say. I mean, realizing that San Ramon is working with Central San or DSRSD, but one of the things that clogs up our own wastewater system are these wipes, and the representation that these things are, oh, they'll dissolve, they're safe, is wrong. So please, it may not seem nice, but throw it into the basket. By the way, there's a hidden impact from that. Since you're using the disinfecting wipes and you're throwing them in the wastebasket, guess what you're doing to the wastebasket? You're disinfecting it.
The wipes have been a major issue for your lines and your drains. So thank you, Frank.
All right. Another question. Is PG&E planning any power shutoff events in San Ramon for the next several months? And can you guarantee that there will be no power shutoffs this year?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's a pretty controversial area. Real quick, I wanted to insert that for people that have been laid off, they may be eligible for our CARE program, which is a 20% automatic reduction in your bill. I want to thank Frank for mentioning East Bay Mud has something similar. And I also want to put in a plug for the San Ramon Chamber. They've also been extremely well to work with, not just now, but throughout the years. We will be shutting off power. There's nothing scheduled right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if we do shut off power. It's usually between about a 4 and 8 hour period. And it's usually, these are planned shutdowns, and it's usually to improve our equipment and the equipment is designed to help mitigate wildfires. So it's short-term pain, and I know I've gotten an earful from people about we've done a shut off in Danville and Orinda, and we have some scheduled. So yeah, the answer is inevitable. I'll work closely with Supervisor Anderson and her outstanding office, along with Mayor Clarkson, and same with the city, to give them a heads up that this is happening. Usually it's about 200 customers, so it's a very small period, but the purpose is to improve equipment that will help when we have those dreaded public safety power shutoff events in the wildfire season. It will help us really, really reduce the scope of the customers that'll be impacted. So definitely short-term pain, a few hours, but at least we're not going to be turning off power for the most part during 100-degree weather for multiple days. So that's the rationale and strategy behind that, Steve.
Please don't forget your good friends at East Bay Mud when you're doing that also.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Steve.
All right, a couple questions related to assistance for businesses. The SBA loans were distributed early and I didn't receive any support. What other resources are available for my small businesses? And a follow-up to that, is there any money left from the most recent PPP? That money was supposed to be released on Monday.
So the answer to that is intertwined there, and so there are currently funds still available through SBA, and part of that is through the PPP program, as well as some additional funds paid through EIDL and some other programs. So specific to the business owner that asked that, we would want to talk to you and get a little bit better sense of what type of business you are, how many employees you have, some of those other specific details to help you identify what other resources are available, because there are things that are out there. Some of them are industry specific, some of them are community based. It's again, going back to what Tom was saying, some of them are foundation based like Kiva, or working with some of your local partners there like PG&E and East Bay Mud. So there are a lot of resources that are available for small businesses, and there definitely is additional funding still available through the Small Business Administration and the PPP. That money, was released on Monday. It hasn't been going quite as quickly as the first round did, so that we're still in good shape to get some of your businesses in line to get that funding and to help them find other resources as well. So,
great. Next question, how should I report neighbors or businesses engaging in non-essential activities?
Chief.
Probably the easiest way would be to call our non-emergency dispatch number. That number is 973-2779. During business hours, you can also contact the PD directly. That number is 973-2700. So those would be ways of contacting us, but dispatch likely would be the easiest way. Once those calls come in, an officer gets dispatched. And I mentioned this before, I think the first time I was on with the mayor. The way we're dealing with complaints, the social complaints such as social distancing, recreational activities, we as the police department are the primary response on that. Complaints that are coming in regarding businesses, we are working in collaboration with our code enforcement unit as well. So when it comes to businesses, we do kind of have a two-pronged approach on those, but whatever the violation that you're reporting, either one of those numbers would suffice.
All right, the next question is, could someone describe where the developers are with the Bishop Ranch expansion project? I believe that refers to the Bishop Ranch City Walk project.
I guess that would be me. That is progressing. Obviously, there's been some slowdown due to the COVID-19, but however, it's progressing through the planning system. I anticipate there'll be an environmental impact report draft out relatively soon. So to the degree a lot of the work necessary to accomplish that is allowed, that is what's kind of slowing it down a bit, but it's moving forward.
All right, next question is, there is a lot of confusion on the exceptions being granted started May 3rd, mainly around outdoor activities for the children, specifically around organized group sports activities like cricket. Can you please clarify whether organized sports groups activities are on the exemption list?
And I'm guessing I will take that. We do have FAQs that are continually being updated on our county health website. But something like cricket, where it's likely that you're going to have shared equipment. I don't know that everyone has their own cricket bat, and where you would have contact with tagging someone, coming in close contact, probably would not be appropriate. And so we haven't spelled out every single activity that's allowed and every single activity that's not, but anything that uses either shared equipment or is likely to have people come in close contact with one another is not something that we want to see going forward. Now, maybe there's some way to create a cricket camp where, you know, you're not having that close contact, you're not having shared equipment, and you have just one thing that's very critical is a consistent group of 12 that are always the same 12 meeting together, the same instructor. Maybe you could make that happen, but I would really recommend calling our health line, our hotline on our health website to sort of talk through those issues. And they can then hopefully provide FAQs very specific to that. On my morning briefing, I was actually asking them to explain a little bit more about this, these small groups of 12, because some moms were saying, oh great, we can start our play group now, because there's only 10 of us in our play group. And that's really not the intent. It really is a way to help parents who are working have a place for their children to go, and a way to consistently have those 12 not spreading the virus beyond anyone else should they come in contact with it.
Great. There's an email. I'll try and summarize it, but apparently they are now looking at testing wastewater runoff for COVID, and Stanford has been given a grant to analyze wastewater samples in the Bay Area. Is East Bay Mud part of this? And what do you know of this new particular testing method?
Yeah, East Bay Mud is part of it, partially because our facilities are really pretty well advanced. Yeah, it's an interesting situation, and I'm not a scientist, so bear with me for a minute. It's clear that they can do some discrete sampling to see if there is some residual, that's the word I was looking for, from the COVID. And they're looking to see if that will help them determine just how widespread this is. Does it mean that the wastewater is going to be dangerous? No, because we're doing some pretty serious sanitizing of the wastewater before we do any discharging or use it for recycled water. However, before it gets into that stage, in other words, when it's pretty raw, they're looking to see if maybe this is one more vehicle to get a handle on what this disease really is. So I know we'll have some more on it, but I think the real key is Stanford is an extraordinary organization, and the work they do, we'll learn all about it.
Thanks, Frank.
Right. Another question is, how can you work with the powers that be to reverse the decision not to book criminals for their crimes right now? And as a follow-up question, what happens to those that are released? Do they eventually face the penalties for their crimes?
Chief.
I'll let Chief start, and then I can throw my 2 cents from the sheriff's perspective.
Well, I know that when this order was first being proposed, I know that the California State Sheriff's Association, that they were very strongly opposed to it. At this point, there's only several weeks of data that exists. So obviously, we're going to the State Sheriff's Association as well as the California Police Chiefs Association, our role is public safety. So we're monitoring this very closely and seeing how this order correlates with crime rates. I just saw an article yesterday, and it was in LA. So LA is not like us. However, in this article, it was referencing the fact that they've arrested a car thief 4 separate times in the last 3 weeks. So just as an example that people are committing crime and we don't have the ability to incarcerate them. The second part, yes, there is the ability to still charge these crimes. And certainly that's still the plan. However, our court system has the last I heard, there's only really a couple courtrooms that are up and running. So I know that the judicial processes are falling behind, and I think the DA is looking at opportunities to get cases going again using some different technology. So hopefully we're moving in that direction. And with that, I'll defer to Supervisor Anderson. I think she wanted to weigh in as well.
No, I was just going to say the sheriff has indeed, with the Sheriff's Association, been very concerned about this. And not only do we have our own jail population, but because our state prisons have essentially not accepted new people, anyone who normally would be with a parole violation returned to state prison, then has to be dealt with in our jail. And so we do, we're still doing some intake, but instead of 60 per day, we're doing about 10 per day of the most serious offenders.
I can speak only as one member of the city council, but I've expressed my opinion to our elected representatives at the state and assembly that at least I am very unhappy with the direction of not incarcerating the bad guys. It's one thing to take a petty misdemeanor that we might have booked somebody and not booked them, but the reality is that we're seeing a huge uptick in surrounding cities in property crimes. And it's my opinion that a lot of this is tied to the fact there are not consequences. And I know a lot of residents, including myself, are not happy with how we're handicapping our police who are doing a great job every day, and I can feel their frustration. So.
All right, another question. With the reduction in utility use by commercial customers, will residential customers see an increase in their rates?
Good question. The answer is no. There has been a reduction in, and this could be for East Bay Mud too, I believe too. They have both classes, but no, the rates will be holding steady. We work really close with our regulator, the California Public Utilities Commission, and the demand on the residential side obviously has we've seen an uptick, and we've seen a downtick on the commercial side. But I think this will all work itself out. But rates will hold steady. Any kind of a rate increase would have to be approved by the Public Utilities Commission, and right now PG&E has no plans whatsoever to seek that kind of an adjustment. Good question, though.
On the East Bay Mud side, no, there's not going to be a reduction. And actually, what we're going to be wrestling with at our May financial review workshop is that we had a rate increase scheduled for July 1st. And while it was a fairly low percentage, it's like, what are we going to do in these critical times and the impact on so many people? So stay tuned. I don't have an answer on that portion, but it was scheduled, and it was something that was passed last year when everything was rosy and everybody was well.
And Austin, excuse me, Steve, Austin, and I'm glad to see a lot of work that's going to be performed with the business community. We have seen an increase in people expressing an interest about energy efficiency strategies to help manage their bill, both from a residential and commercial standpoint, but mostly residential. We have seen a lot of calls coming in, a lot of emails, a lot of inquiries as to what kind of rebates PG&E has for energy efficiency programs, solar programs. There could be weatherization, lighting, and the like. So there has been quite a bit from that standpoint. And Austin I'll be happy to work with you and in the outreach you do to the business community to provide you information about some of those rebates that are available. Many of them go unspent, but right now we're seeing quite a bit of demand in them because while the rates haven't increased, the usage has from a residential standpoint.
Bill, I'm afraid
Steve?
I'm going to have to leave shortly.
No, say, Steve, we're at 10:15. I promise people not to have gone further than that. I want to thank all the guests. As an aside, City Manager Paul Holst, who I think you know, used to be a detective with the sheriff, has his own blog, and he's making he has an interesting blog about how the impact of the virus is having with criminality and some serious crimes. So he's somebody who we know, and he's putting a broadcast out about how it's impacting the real world. I want to thank all of our guests. PG&E, keep bringing in the juice and the gas. We need that stuff. Thank you, sir. And again, Frank, we appreciate all the fresh water you bring us, best water in the world. Candace, I know you got a tough job. You're working never as hard as you have these last couple of months. Thank you for your continual good feedback to our city. I appreciate that. Chief, I know you're handicapped at times. All you guys are out working hard. I wish everybody was pulling as hard in the state as you are to keep the bad guys off the streets. So thank you, sir. And Austin, we're looking forward to your podcast next week, next Monday at 1:30. I think Steve will be helping to coordinate that. Of course, Steve, thank you for all the work you've done. And of course, the final thank you is to our amazing city manager, Joe Gorton. Joe, steady hand on the wheel and keeping us going. So thank you, sir. Everybody stay safe. Have a great weekend. And thank you for joining us.
Thank
Thanks,
you, Bill.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.